You're listening to 1232, an audio epic, produced by RumbleStump Entertainment. Chapter 30. Few of the resistance had left their secret cave in the middle of the night. Cardigan had Edward stay behind to watch and see if there was any movement near the burn, and to catch up when night fell. He hadn't expected to see Edward that morning.
What is it, Ed?
Cardigan asked, as Edward came running down the hill to meet him.
Rhaegar came back alone, sire. He found the cave. He seemed to have known where the cave was. And if he knew that, then he may also know what direction we've gone.
You told me you thought we had a spy among us. Perhaps you were right.
There were only a handful of people Cardigan didn't know well among their number. His thoughts drifted to murky waters. The only person it could be was Flint or possibly even Rhona. The very idea sent pain to his heart.
Keep an eye out,
was all he said to Edward, who read the thoughts of his friend. Rhona and Flint rode at the head of the company with the priest and Smyth, who were scouting their way. The priest sat astride Aeron, with little Daffod sound asleep in front of him. The boy's small fingers tangled in the black stallion's mane. Rhona was on Hero, and this time Flint found his own horse to ride. It was a little sorrel mare, one of the native horses, that was tough and game for anything. She had white socks on her hind feet and a tiny white spot on her nose. Flint wasn't at all happy with her.
Whoa! Rhona, he won't stand still.
The mare's mouth gaped open as Flint cranked back on the reins with all his strength, her feet still moving forward.
Rhona, how do I make him stop doing that?
If Flint let out the reins even a little, the mare would bolt.
I told you, Flint, stop squeezing her so hard with your legs. You're pushing the gas pedal when you do that. And you're on a mare. It's not a he, it's a she.
Oh, sorry, girl.
Flint said, relaxing his legs and the reins at the same time. The mare stood still.
Wow, that worked. Okay.
Flint stroked the mare's neck and went on talking to her. They were riding through beautiful country. There was a clear running creek in every valley, it seemed. Grassy meadows where the trees grew far apart, and rugged plateaus. Birds sang a chorus that would rival any concert hall, and the clouds made room for the morning sun just long enough to warm the late autumn air. Cardigan came up to them, riding past Rhona and Flint with a grin. He said something to Smyth, who promptly rode ahead at a high trot and disappeared in the trees. Cardigan rode beside Priest Michael. Their conversation looked serious. Then they stopped to let Flint and Rhona catch up.
Lady Rhona and Flint, I have a question for you. Pray answer truly for my sake.
Cardigan said, a frown contrasting with his usually friendly manner. His eyes were pleading as he said this. Their horses walked on together, seeming to have a conversation of their own. Hewlin, Cardigan's bay stallion, was the boss of the bunch. He laid his ears back to let Hero know not to get ahead of him. Rhona was watching the horse's ears. Not really sure what this could be about, but Cardigan's expression told her it was important.
Shoot,
said Flint casually, petting his mare's neck. Momentary confusion ensued, and Cardigan glanced over at the priest as if to ask what Flint meant. Priest Michael shrugged.
Flint, Rhona, as you've observed, there is a spy among us. The enchantress laid tinder for the magic fire to our camp and has now discovered the cave. She couldn't have done it without help. Your hound, where is it?
Oh, you mean Scooby?
Flint was puzzled how the spy and the dog could be connected.
Well, it doesn't stay with me at night, and she is usually hanging around about now. Why?
The hound is a demon. The enchantress has placed a curse on her, which the devil was happy to grant. She is a shapeshifter, human and hound. Certainly, she is our spy.
You expect me to believe that? I'll admit there's something really weird about that dog. Still, come on, you guys. A demon? Really? That's pathetically superstitious.
Rhona said, shaking her head in disbelief.
Rhona, it's like in Lady Hawk. You know, they can never be together as humans because one was cursed to be a hawk by day and the other to be a wolf by night. If that's true, then she's been taking messages to the enchantress this whole time. We have to catch her and keep her at night. I bet we could get the truth out of her then.
Yeah, Flint. You're just hoping she turns out looking like Michelle Pfeiffer.
She appears before night. Catch her.
Got it.
Silence enveloped as they rode until Cardigan broke it, singing an old hymn. things returned to their bizarre normal with the company. We're going to take just a minute to hear from our awesome sponsors who make this show possible. Then we'll get back to the show. Hello, 1232 listeners. This is Callie Sioux, and I'm excited to tell you about Dramify, the ultimate platform for creators and fans of audio dramas. With oodles of genres, hundreds of shows, and thousands of episodes, Dramify is your go-to streaming service exclusively for family-friendly audio dramas. Whether you're a devoted listener or a creator of a family-friendly masterpiece, Dramify has something for you. And guess what, 1232 listeners? You can now enjoy 1232 on Dramify. Just go to dramify.com/1232. That's DRAMAFY.com/1232 and get started for free. Happy listening.
Is your toast boring? Next time, get some of Mad Madam Mim's marmalade.
It's tangy, it's batty, it's pink, and it makes a wizard think.
Mad Madam Mim's marmalade. You'll go mad for it.
And now, back to the show. By nightfall, they had safely reached the castle at Carreg Cennen. One lonely road climbed to the entrance of the mighty fortress.
Now this is what a castle is supposed to look like.
Rhona thought to herself as they approached the walls. Lord Gandwy and his people welcomed them with an autumn feast the following day. High on the limestone precipice, Rhona felt more secure inside these walls than she had in a long time, and freer, being atop the world when she looked over the wall. Lord Gandwy was past his prime, but even in his old age he was cheerful and chatty, overzealously so, not letting anyone else get a word in. The people rejoiced to hear that Cardigan was alive. For all they knew, all heirs of Cheyenne were dead. Brecon, being the closer shire to England, was all that lay between them and the Marcher Lords. But an enchantress on the loose could mean the loss of many fortresses and the weakening of all Wales for invaders to come and pick their bones clean.
Cardigan, my boy, my heart is downcast. Can it be true what you're telling me? That the witch Zoral has conquered Brecon, and your brother is lost. Several years ago, a Norman lord attacked us, but we stood him off and sent him packing. What a pompous man he was. Typical Norman, my boy. I heard his own men killed him. Take that!
Lord Gandwy laughed loud at his own jest until he had to stop and catch his breath.
But do you suppose it is his men that have given this witch the force with which to hold the country from you? Suppose they have entered her service? It is well that you have come here. I have plenty, and you shall winter here. Stay until spring. Stay forever. I shall name you my friend and ally. She shall never come here.
Cardigan at last interrupted.
Good friend, your kindness is gratefully received, but I cannot stay. I intend to travel north through Snowdonia with a few of my trusted companions to gather an army. And when I return, God willing, I shall defeat Zoreal and give all the Powys and Brecknockshire back to the people. But I would be in your debt if the rest of my friends could stay here, under your protection.
The old man nodded emphatically, unable to speak as he chewed a mouthful of mutton. At last, he got a few words in.
They shall be given provisions from my own stores, and shall be treated as if they were my own children.
He raised his glass and grinned before he took a long draught.
Thank you. You are very generous, sire. As I said, I am in your debt.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a quick word from our sponsors. Is your tea in the cupboard boring? Is the coffee you buy from the grocery store expensive and crappy? It's time you use our promo code 1232 for 32% off your first order of quality tea and coffee from atticustea.com. That's 1232 for 32% off your first order at atticustea.com.
This episode of 1232 is sponsored in part by Oasis Family Media and its family of companies including Oasis Audio, Enclave Publishing, and Sky Turtle Press. Publishers of the forthcoming epic Edmund Spenser's The Fairy Queen, rendered in modern prose by Rebecca K. Reynolds and illustrated by Justin Gerard. For more information, visit fairyqueen.com. That's fairyqueen.com, or find the link in the description below.
The arrangements were made quickly, and within 2 days, they planned to depart for Snowdonia. Edward and Smyth would stay behind with the people from Brecon. Flint, Rhona, and the priest would travel with Prince Cardigan. The only question was what to do with little Daffod.
Flint, no. I'm not babysitting the kid the whole way. Seriously, it's too dangerous anyways. The reason there's only 4 of us going is for safety. What if we got ambushed or something?
Rhona leaned across the table to emphasize her point.
Rhona, he has nobody. Besides, he has been with you and me ever since Karen died. All the scrapes we've been in, and he made it okay. I'm not saying you have to, but Rhona, you're like his mom now.
Flint said casually. He had pushed one of Rhona's buttons, and he waited for the reaction. Rhona's eyes flared. She was about to say more when the priest leaned toward them and said,
Daffod is the last of Llewellyn the Great's bloodline. He is too important to leave behind. Daffod must stay with the prince. The boy travels with us.
The matter was settled. Rhona wasn't the babysitting type, but she would never admit the kid was growing on her.
Great. So I'm gonna be stuck with the kid the whole way.
Rhona grumbled, her eyes sending dirty looks toward Flint, who gloated silently as he ate. They were all at Lord Gandwy's table, a long table, set up in his courtyard for the feast. It was harvest time, and his people were celebrating. There was quite a crowd there, some dancing to music being played by a minstrel, some trying their hand at throwing knives at a target. The later it got, the more noise everyone made. Dogs lingered around the table in the corners of the courtyard, sometimes fighting and scrambling for bones and scraps from the table. It was a cheerful scene, really, although they had come there as refugees. Every now and again, the group closest to the minstrels would burst into song, only to be drowned out by the drop they chugged between lines. The weather was clear in the late afternoon, and the feasting and merrymaking continued. Rhona got bored and left the table. She decided to look around more. Of course, anyone who didn't know her stared at her like she was a circus clown. Her trademark leather jacket and tactical boots and jeans made her a sight. She would sometimes stop to watch something going on in the courtyard, but if she did, everyone would stop what they were doing to stare at her. It was getting really annoying. The priest and Flint caught up to her. Flint got funny looks too, but that was just because of his glasses. Otherwise, he looked like the rest of the native peoples in his medieval garb.
Hey, Rhona. Priest Michael wants to start our training right now.
It's time to see if you've picked up anything being with us. Let us retire to that place by the wall. I should like to test your skills.
The priest said, turning to walk over to the place he had pointed to. Rhona looked around. She knew they were going to draw a crowd. A thought came to her. In case there was a spy here, and they found out Rhona and Flint both sucked at medieval combat, and also figured out they would be the only ones traveling with the prince, well, that would be bad news for the cause.
This Lord Gandwy seems like a pretty cool guy, but just in case they're assessing Cardigan and the rest of us, I'm not going to embarrass him.
I have a better idea,
Rhona said, and she jogged over where everyone was throwing knives. Priest Michael stopped to watch, and Flint seemed paralyzed, not sure what to do with himself. The men all stepped aside for Rhona, and one of them gave her 3 knives. The targets were 3 skins of water hanging on a post about 10 yards away. Rhona nodded thanks and took aim.
Best 2 out of 3,
she muttered. She drew back her arm, aimed, flicked her wrist, and let the knife fly, watching it burst the water skin and stick into the post. In 2 more fluid movements, She pierced the other two skins with each thwack of the knife hitting its mark. More people meandered over to see. After her last hit, they erupted in cheers. Rhona just smiled, catching Cardigan's eye across the courtyard. He winked and excused himself from the feast. He smiled his way through the parting crowd.
Impressive, my lady, but can you do it at a greater distance?
He asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. Rhona tried to read his face. He was grinning, of course, his blue eyes shining.
He doesn't think I can. I'll show him.
Well, I don't know, Prince. Can you?
The people, standing all around, made a loud, "Ooh" sound at Rhona's challenge. Prince Cardigan bowed.
I can.
Well, let's see it.
People scrambled about, setting up a new target. Prince Cardigan and Rhona stepped a few paces back.
My lady?
Cardigan said, gesturing for Rhona to go first.
Oh no, royalty before beauty. You go first,
she said, an arrogant smirk across her face, but her eyes were shining, and she threw a genuine smile back at Cardigan. He bowed again and stepped up to the throwing mark. Everyone was eager to see and pressed in. Ed and Smyth, still reclining at the table, couldn't help but give Cardigan a hard time.
Take your time. She's very good. Wouldn't want to see you miss in front of all these people.
Ah, yes, your poor eyes. Perhaps you should borrow Sir Flint's false ones. You're not what you used to be, you know.
Hollered Smyth, elbowing Edward. Flint stood next to Rhona now, and though he was laughing, the joke made him self-conscious.
False eyes. You'll never live that one down, bro.
Cardigan did his best to ignore Smyth and Ed, and focused, lining up his aim. In one lightning-quick motion, he sent the knife straight into the post, barely nicking the skin so that the water leaked out through one hole. The crowd reacted in a great cheer. They hushed shortly, excited to see Rhona go next. Rhona stepped up to the mark and aimed, but stopped before throwing.
Can I borrow that?
She asked, pointing to a girl's kerchief. Rhona employed Flint to tie the cloth around her eyes. A hush fell over the crowd. The only noise was the dogs growling at each other and munching bones under the feasting table. A long pause followed, everyone holding their breath. Rhona hit her target dead center, bursting the bag exactly like the other three. The people were wild with excitement, even more than before, and the celebration picked up again. Rhona untied the blindfold, smiling.
Haven't had fun like that in a while,
she said, giving the girl her handkerchief back.
Rhona, that was awesome. I had no clue you could do stuff like that.
Oh, come on, Flint. You tied the blindfold on. You know how I did that,
she said, winking at him. Flint's smile betrayed his confusion, and he nodded absently.
After seeing your skill, Lady Rhona, I am confident you'll be safe anywhere.
Why, thank you, sir. You're not so bad yourself.
Cardigan stuck out his hand in good sportsmanship. Rhona took it, still smiling.
There's only one other I know who could throw a dagger so well. My brother Lachlan was a master. He taught me, though I know I'll never equal his skill. You come the closest I've ever seen to his abilities.
Well, I can't take the credit for that. I learned from a coworker, a guy I used to work with. He was deadly with a knife, too. Better with that than a pistol,
Rhona said, attempting humility.
Who? The guy that came here with us?
Yeah. Taff.
Suddenly hit with regret. She had been so wrapped up in the events that took place since their escape, she hadn't even given him another thought. Now, with so much at stake, she felt the sudden urge to ask for forgiveness and run to his aid. She stuffed the emotions down, but her face flushed with the recognition of her own selfishness.
I wonder if he's still alive,
Rhona thought anxiously. Her thought must have broadcasted from her forehead, because Cardigan's expression changed. Cardigan's jaw tightened.
Lady Rhona, I give you my word of honor to set your friend free.
He looked into her eyes, trying to be of comfort.
Trust me.
Honor and a bit of curiosity dictated his assurance to Rhona. He had heard little of this person and wondered why they hadn't mentioned Taff more often. Cardigan had had few conversations with Rhona or Flint since the prison. He resigned himself to resolve this in the days ahead. Who was this Taff? Would he still be alive? Cardigan could sense Rhona's kinship with Taff and could only imagine the difficulty of her position. Cardigan had asked her to follow him and go in the opposite direction of her friend. She stood stoically. It was easy to forget that Taff was still a prisoner in the Brecken stronghold. Rhona's guilt twisted in her gut. It wasn't a matter of trusting Cardigan at all, it was her own failure. It all built up inside, and she didn't know how much longer she could stand it. Flint felt guilty too, trying to justify the fact that he had forgotten Taff since their escape.
I've got to remain sharp. Too much at stake. Taff took plenty good care of himself before.
Rhona bottled up her feelings. You've been listening to episode 29 of 1232, produced by RumbleStump Entertainment. Written by Callie, Sioux, and Cheyenne Belle. Narrated by Callie, Sioux. Today's voice talents include Matt Burke as Cardigan, Robyn Cage as Rhona Thatcher, Garrett Goodloe as Edward, Corey Keller as Flint Thatcher, Sid Goodloe as Priest Michael, Keith Robinson as Lord Gandwy, and Mike Darling as Smyth. This episode was mixed and engineered by Jhett Black, with editing and sound design by Caballero, Caballero Sounds. Music by Callie, Sioux, and Jhett Black. Static Line, the 1232 theme, is now available wherever you listen to music. Continue the adventure in episode 30.